topic is going to be regarding retention of urine. Retention of urine, anybody has any idea what it is exactly? What is retention of urine? Huh? Can't hear you. Absolutely. So it is basically that if we are not able to pass urine, even if the bladder is full, that is called as urine retention. Now this urine retention, as we can see, this person is having some bulge in the suprapubic area. Why is this bulge there? It is because the bladder is somewhat palpable. Now this can be an acute situation, this can be a chronic situation, and this can be an acute on chronic situation. So first of all, as she rightly said, what is a retention? One is not able to pass urine even if the patient is having bladder that is full. That means the urine is completely filling up the bladder, but still the patient is not able to pass urine. Now this can be of two different types. One is acute, the other is chronic. We will be taking up acute first and then we will be discussing about the chronic process. So what do you feel? How is going to be the acute presenting to us? A patient comes to the emergency. He is in a very dreadful situation. He is shouting that I am not able to pass urine. He is basically in a lot of pain. In that situation, a condition that is a urological emergency is there. It is an acute retention. But in the similar manner, a patient comes to me. Again, he is in a dreadful situation, but he is somewhat not toxic. He is in an absolute relaxed state. He's just, whenever we are basically examining him, bladder is going up till above the umbilicus. It is so much enlarged, but patient is not complaining of any pain. What he has come with is dribbling. The first person is not able to pass a single drop of urine, but the second person is able to have some dribbling that is going on there. Acute situations are areas which becomes painful because the patient is not able to pass a single drop. But chronic process is, since the patient is passing dribblings, it is basically not such a painful process. So how it is about the epidemiology? So this is basically seen mostly in the elderly age group. Elderly age group means what? Within the males, they will have prostatic enlargements. So because of this prostatic enlargements, if they are not able to take medicines or they are not getting themselves treated, in that situations, they will be basically landing up in retention someday or the other as a part of complication. In the similar manner, in case of females, what happens? Elderly females normally develop prolapse. If the prolapse is basically going in this highest stage, which is called as procedentia, they might compress the urethral meatus. Again, the patient may land up into retention. Patients are also having certain things which is called as pelvic surgeries. So many of the elderly patients undergo pelvic surgeries for the uterus operations or anything. It is a stress condition and many of the patients post-operatively develop retention. There are certain other situations which includes diabetes mellitus, causing diabetic cystopathy, or neurological conditions including Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, tabes dorsalis. All these conditions are also going to cause the similar situation. Apart from that, there are certain medications, which is basically including the opioids and the anticholinergics. Anticholinergics in the form of sulfasalazine, mirabegron, all these kind of drugs, if they are basically used on a prolonged basis, in that situation, the patients will land up into retention. So before going into what it is like, we have to first understand how is basically the whole mechanism of urination taking place. So basically what happens, if this is the bladder is getting stretched up because of the urine that is basically inflowing from the kidneys. So kidneys are basically forming urine, it is entering into the bladder. Bladder starts to stretch up. Once this is stretching, it will send afferent impulses to the brain. So basically it is sending afferent impulses to the brain. The brain senses these impulses and it actually activates the most important center, which is called as Pons micturition center. This has to be remembered, it's a very important MCQ as well. This Pons micturition center is getting activated it actually causes 3 different mechanisms, 3 different actions at 3 different levels. As we can see here, this is the whole spinal cord. It is relaying whatever information is coming from the brain, it is going to the bladder. So ultimately, brain to bladder connected is by the spinal cord through the help of nerves. There are sympathetic supply, there is a parasympathetic supply. The parasympathetic supply is coming from the S2, S3 and S4, while the sympathetic is coming from T1 and T2. So T1 to T2 is something which is the hypogastric plexus, and the S2, S3, S4 is something which is the pelvic splanchnic nerves. Now what is happening is, whenever S2, S3, S4 is getting activated, it is the one that is acting on the muscles in the bladder, causing it to contract. And whenever the sympathetic is acting, it is something which is causing the muscles to relax. Okay, so basically it is the parasympathetic which is causing the muscles to contract. So what happens in this particular situations, PONS is basically causing the inhibition of the sympathetic system. It is causing the activation of the parasympathetic system. And it is also causing the activation of the striated muscles or the somatic nerve supply, which is basically acting onto the external urethral sphincter. So what is happening? We require 3 things to happen together. One, the bladder to contract. The other is the sphincter to relax. There are 2 sphincters which are present. One is the internal sphincter, which is not in our control. One is the external sphincter, which is in our control. I am not allowing you to go to pee. What will you basically do? You will activate your external urethral sphincter. So you are basically able to control through that particular process. So basically these 2 things need to relax, bladder needs to contract, then only we are able to pass urine normally. If there is any discoordination between any of these 3 systems, it will call dyssynergia. And this dyssynergia will bring about problems later on. Now after discussing the basic pathophysiology, how it is going about, we need to understand what are the basic reasons why this retention is happening. Because ultimately the patient is coming to us symptomatic, we are giving them relief, but if you are not able to treat the underlying cause, the same thing will happen again, right? So it is divided into adult males, thereafter pediatric group, women, these 3 ages. Now how is the things coming across? We can simply understand, this is the bladder, this is basically the urethra. So as we go line wise, first of all, if there is any obstruction to the outflow tract, it is ultimately going to cause retention on a long-term basis. So if it is basically having a meatal stenosis, that means the whole meatus is getting narrowed, or there is presence of any forms of a urethral stricture disease. If there is any calculus inside the urethra or any calculus inside the bladder, if the prostate is getting enlarged and ultimately obstructing the pathway, if the same prostate catches up cancer, if there is a large bladder tumor which is compressing and ultimately obstructing the bladder neck. So these are simple causes which can bring about chances that ultimately it will develop retention. So we don't need to learn all these things. If we remember this particular figure and go line wise, meatal stenosis, stricture, stones in any areas, tumor in any area, or a prostatic enlargement, we can easily remember the whole situation. Apart from that, other things. So always there is an inflammation or any kind of infection. Now this infection can be either in the level of urethra or at the level of prostate, and if the infection is becoming too large, then what will happen? Abscess formation. So any of these 3 processes can also bring about the stricture formation. Why? Ultimately we know that any healing process takes place by fibrosis. So if fibrosis is going to take place, what will happen is stricture formation. Stricture formation means again retention, the patient will develop the same symptoms. Any kind of trauma. So if basically a patient, normally the most common trauma is pelvic urethral distraction defect. What it is, a patient is having a quick velocity, means it's a car accident or any like that. In that situations, what happens? There is a pelvic girdle which gets fractured. So the pelvic girdle is actually overlying the bladder. So if the pelvic girdle fractures, it will basically have one of the bony pieces which is going to pierce the urethra. And that particular causes what? It is basically urethral rupture. Patient comes to us with bleeding per urethra, along with development of no passage of urine and pain. So this is again a emergency. This I have already discussed. Normally this is seen more in children than in case of men. What it is? What is this condition? What is this condition? Anybody? So this is phimosis. This is phimosis. This is basically the penis of a young child, and we can see that this is basically having a tight prepuce. It is not able to retract back. And what is this situation? This is paraphimosis. So here we can see the glands, and it has actually the prepuce which has gone there. There is a ring formation of edema fluid which is basically encircling the whole glands. We are not able to reproduce back the prepuce. So basically phimosis, or it is something which is called as paraphimosis, can also bring about the similar situation in extreme conditions. Not all phimosis brings about retention. It is only in extreme situations when it is not getting treated, it will bring about the same things. There are certain neurological conditions I already discussed: tabes dorsalis, quada equina, multiple sclerosis. What basically they are doing? I have just discussed the fact that all the control from the brain to the bladder is going through the spinal cord. So if there is any pathology that is taking place in the spinal cord, what will happen? The relay will get disturbed. And if it is getting disturbed, somewhat it may land up into retention. In the similar manner, a spinal injury, a patient that is falling from height, most commonly what we see in case of the rural areas, patient comes to us, coconut tree pe chad gaye, gir gaye, ultimately they land up in the similar situation. Post-operative situations. Please do remember, post-operative situations are stressful conditions. Any stress in the body can aggravate retention because they can stop signals coming from brain to the bladder. Why have I discussed initially the pathophysiology? The whole thing comes through that. If the spinal cord is getting disturbed, if the brain is getting disturbed, if there is local pathologies in the bladder, all these things should be in a coordinated manner for a normal passage of urine. Now comes something which is within the females. Can anybody say what is this? I have just said this particular thing few minutes back. What is this? It is prolapse, but it is the extreme situation of prolapse called as procedentia. So whenever this procedentia is going to take place, this is the meatus area. It is going to compress the meatus. Ultimately what happens? Whenever the patient is trying to pass urine, the prolapse actually increases. Why? Because you know that whenever we are applying pressure, prolapse is further increasing. It is compressing the urethra, ultimately lands up in retention. So basically, I discussed about dyssynergia also. Any difficulty in pathways, it will bring about the same situations. I have discussed about the uterus, very important thing, retroverted gravid uterus. So what actually happens in a gravid state, the uterus gets enlarged, gets retroverted, means it's falling back onto the bladder, and that is basically in the advanced stages of pregnancy. You have seen many patients who are saying that I'm not able to pass stool, constipation, or I'm not able to urine well. Sometimes if it is basically causing absolute compression, it can bring about retention. So it is basically one of the causes, but in extreme levels. Post-operative I've already discussed, and yes, there is always a chance of vesical and urethral calculi, whether it is male, whether it is female. So it is actually not gender bias, it is a common scenario. So what about the male child? The most common scenario that we see in case of a male child is something which is called as posterior urethral valve. So what is a posterior urethral valve? It is basically a situation where there is a small valve formation that takes place in the urethra. It is basically like this. There is a small valve which is here and which is here. So what it is going to do, whenever the urine is coming out, it is not allowing the urine to pass through. But what is the interesting part in this? It is in this scenario, like this. So whenever we are able to pass the catheter, it will basically easily go. So catheter goes easily. We think that it is a normal passage, but it is a one-way valve. The urine will not come out, but it is the catheter which can easily go. This is called as posterior urethral valve, a situation which is most commonly seen in case of young, small children, particularly the males. Apart from that, neurological conditions in within the males, young child, it is the spina bifida. Spina bifida is something which is going to affect the young males, and that is something which is going to cause the similar situation. As we can see here, this is the bladder and this is the dilated posterior urethra. Why is this dilated posterior urethra? It is a typical picture that is seen in case of a PUV. What is happening? The urine is trying to pass through this, but here the valve is there, it is not able to pass through. So that is something which is PUV for us, okay? In the similar situations, everything is similar. Whenever you find that you don't know the answer, meatal stenosis is always there. Meatal narrowing is always there. So it is like, these are common scenarios which in examinations you can always write or say. Now there are certain very important situations which is there. One is Saturday night, we should drink alcohol. Huh? So many of the patients comes to us, they have binge drinking. This binge drinking sometimes, if a patient is already having some underlying situations, not all alcoholics are going to come with retention, but if a patient is having some underlying situations and there is a binge drinking that takes place, they may develop into retention. Apart from that, surgery, I've already said, it's a stress condition, it can bring about the situations. Many of the patients who develop stroke, they come to us and they say that they are not able to pass urine, they are not able to pass stool. What is happening? I said now the problem is not within the spinal cord or the bladder, but now the problem is in the brain. So any of the three is getting disturbed, it is going to cause retention. So CVA is again one of the very important causes. These drugs are not very hard to remember because I said parasympathetic is something which is helping to pass the urine. So basically anticholinergics are opposite to parasympathetic. Sympathomimetics, that means something which is helping the sympathetic system. So something which is going to relax the bladder. Diuretics, again it is having a similar action as that of alcohol. They basically behave like diuretics itself. There are certain perennial conditions. Now what are these? Patients who are particularly females, they develop severe vaginitis. This severe vaginitis is actually so painful that whenever they are about to pass urine, because of that particular pain, they basically shrink that particular urethral meter so tight, they are not able to pass and ultimately they develop retention. So these painful perennial conditions are also to be thought about. Antidepressants, like for example, anticholinergics, antipsychotics, so many patients who are on psychiatric medications, they are also having certain drugs which are basically relaxing their bladder, ultimately developing retention. So as I just said, if a patient is having acute condition, how are they going to present? In a very painful situation. They are basically coming to us, Dr. Babu Bachiyedin, ami ar pachina. So what is happening to them? They are not able to pass urine in a single drop. Their bladder is palpable. It is an extremely painful situation and it is an emergency which we have to see immediately. I had shown this suprapubic swelling in the first picture of my slide. So basically that is something that they are coming across with. But what is chronic? These patients are borderless. They are not bothered what is happening with them. They are traveling with something which is basically a bottle full of water. So it is something which is a situation where 2 liters of urine is there inside the bladder. Still they are not in pain. And sometimes they say, in fact, they come with us that they are having incontinence. And by mistake, what we give sympathomimetics to them for treating incontinence because we want the urine to stop. But actually, this is not an incontinence, this is an overflow incontinence. So if basically we are having a mug which is full of water and we are continuously pouring inside the water, what will happen? The water will flow out. Extra water will flow out. This is a similar situation. The bladder is completely full. They have no capacity to hold it further. What will they do? They will just release the excess water. That is incontinence. So it is basically the overflow incontinence which is going to be there. Okay? Apart from that, we already know that these are those patients who have been borderless about their symptoms. Most commonly, they were suffering from prostatic symptoms or urethral strictures, and ultimately they had long-standing bladder outlet obstructions. They were not treating themselves well, and then they developed retentions. In my last two classes, I had discussed about bladder outlet obstruction in detail. And then we were saying that how it's the whole retention that's taking place. So yes, the diagnosis, we will treat these patients, but then we need to understand what is the situation like, what is the diagnosis, because apart from that, again the patient will go, again the patient will come back saying, oh my God, I'm in the same situation. So it depends upon the age, depends upon the clinical finding, and there are certain investigations that we need to do to diagnose the situations. So history is very easy actually. We have discussed about the fact that the urethral stricture is one of the very important causes. Urethral strictures are there in case of elderlies, but it is something which is much more common in case of the young men. And strictures, why they do happen, we have discussed about the trauma, healing with fibrosis leading to stricture formation. We have discussed about inflammation or infection, again causing the same stricture. And we have discussed about the fact that the patient had underwent any kind of iatrogenic injury. That iatrogenic injury can be due to the passage of catheter. So a young child, maybe a young child means an intern basically. I was also an intern. I used to do catheter very slowly, just in the fear that if I injure the urethra, I'll be basically in a SU. So it is a very important procedure, the failure to pass catheter, because if we do that, we are making the patient's life hell, because he has become a permanent patient of a urologist. Anything which is a BPH, we have already discussed about BPH last time. It is a elderly situation, elderly symptoms, and if a patient is having any kind of cancerous cells in the case of prostate, it is the CA prostate. Both are elderly symptoms. Now, normally a CA prostate is not going to have any kinds of symptoms, but in only advanced stages, they will be showing weight loss, they will be showing back pain because of the bony extension of this particular tumor. Apart from that, bladder CA, the most common presentation that comes across is hematuria. Again, last class, hematuria was discussed in details and bladder cancer was there. Apart from that, urethritis and prostatitis. Patient comes to us and says, I am passing almost white color urine. That means he is basically passing pus. It is a pyuria which is taking place. Or the patient is having a very painful situation. Whenever he is basically passing urine, he is having burning sensations. What it is urethritis or prostatitis. If a patient comes to us and says 3 kinds of symptoms, that whenever I am urinating well, but suddenly my urine stops. And when it stops, it leads to a lot of excruciating pain, particularly in the suprapubic as well as at the tip of penis. And then it again becomes normal, but I have to pass urine time and again. So what is actually happening? It is the vesical calculus. So basically, if this is the bladder and this is the stone, whenever the patient is passing urine, the stone sometimes comes in the passage. Ultimately, what will happen? The blockage will take place. And since the patient was in the act of micturition, and suppose we are just stopping him suddenly, what will happen? It will be painful. So this is what actually happens in these conditions. Neurogenic conditions, again a situation which is like that of a chronic retention, painless, and something which is basically patient is not knowing about. Because the brain signals are lost, bladder is getting relaxed, and ultimately they are not able to pee. So what is going to be expected in examination? See, whenever we are examining these patients, normally patients of elderly age group are there, they are frail. Chronic retention patients may have anemia. Sometimes these patients have underlying fever. Why? Because there is a lot of retention. The urine is there. Urine is a basic nidus for infection. Bacterial infection takes place and it actually develops fever. So yes, they may be febrile, and ultimately fevers, whatever they are associated, high pulse rate, temperature, that can be there. But then what comes in case of local examination? I just showed you one picture of the bulge. So that particular bulge is something which is quite visible in patients which are coming in at retention. We don't miss it, and it is absolutely stony hard. This particular bulge is totally different from the other parts of the abdomen, which is completely soft. So basically the other parts of abdomen will be basically having softness. Just the lower abdomen is something which is going to be tight, which is going to be bulged. And if it is an acute situation, we percuss, the patient will jump into pain. But if it's a chronic situation, it is a situation where even after percussion, the patient is not complaining of any pain. So this is what we are going to expect in the examination, but we need to also know the diagnosis. So what we are going to do? DRE. DRE, what are the 3 things that we basically see? What is the prostate size first? Second, whether the prostatic surface have hardness or any nodules suggestive of cancer. And the third important thing, whether it is tender or it is boggy, which is suggestive of any kind of prostatic abscess or prostatitis. What about the external genitalia? We have discussed about this particular things many times before as well. This is a sad penis. Why? Because they are not able to pass urine, and what is happening? Either stricture or stenosis, or they are basically not able to open themselves nicely. So what is the similar situations? What comes in case of investigations? So I always say that investigations should start from blood investigations, followed by urine investigations, followed by the imaging investigation. So what sort of blood are you expecting? So we know the patient is in retention. So we know there is always chances that particular backflow pressure will cause damage to the kidneys. UTIs can be there, so the total count might increase. So a CBC and a KFT is a must. Apart from that, a CRP or any other supportive treatments, patients who are elderly may have dyselectrolytemia, so sodium, potassium. Sugar is always an underlying cause. As I said, diabetes mellitus is a high risk factor, so FBS, PPBS. So all these are routine investigations. You will always do these kind of patients. Apart from that, what is the other things? It is the PSA level, because prostatic cancer is always there. What I said was the first investigation is always a USG. And the USG is going to give us a quite idea about the upper tract dilatation, any forms of calculus in any pathways. It will not be able to give about CA although, but strictures and BPH can be seen by the fact that there is retention. So what are the informations that we do get in USG? The amount of urine that is stored, the condition of the bladder, the conditions of the kidney, and any of the certain informations of underlying causes. Suppose there is a stricture. So the most important investigation for a stricture is always ascending ureterogram plus descending ureterogram. So it's a combination of these two which will help us to diagnose the stricture situations. If we are suspecting any stones, what will you do? A digital X-ray KUB. If it is a stone that is basically in the urethra, again ASU MCU. If it's a stone that is basically in the kidneys which have actually jumped out downwards, it can be confirmed with the CT scan as well. So there are many investigations that are there, but certain times we don't find anything in any of these things. Then what is the situation that we do? It is called as cystoscopy, a type of endoscopy that we do inside the bladder. It is called as cystoscopy. So cystoscopy will be giving us the idea regarding the bladder cancer, and if it is there, we need to take a biopsy immediately. So now, as we have all discussed about how it is going through, we need to manage the patient. So how will we manage the patient? The patient's management starts with giving him absolute symptomatic relief first, and then we will think about the cause later, because we have to basically calm the patient down. The always first step is catheterization. Whether it is a chronic condition, whether it is an acute condition, you have to basically drain out the urine which is stored and basically relax them. So this catheterization is something which needs to be done in an absolute aseptic manner, because that itself is one of the situations which can cause infections. And if it is basically a children, many a times what happens, PUV patients, what are the age when we see PUV patients? It's so young that can be less than 1 year. So catheterization becomes quite difficult in them. In that situations, we might need to basically make a hole inside the bladder directly and ultimately drain the urine out, something which is called as vesicostomy. So vesicostomy is something which is done in patients which might be not having the urethral catheterization possible. Sometimes patient comes to us, we try catheter is not passing. Might be because of a calculus stuck in the urethra, might be because of a stricture, or might be because of a very enlarged prostate. What we basically do, we do a suprapubic catheter. So catheter has to be done, or a bypass has to be done. Vesicostomy, suprapubic catheterization, or a perurethral catheterization. Patients are in pain, so they may require certain supportive managements like analgesics, sedatives sometimes, and thereafter if there is any kind of infection, then antibiotics may be as well. After we have done these things, we know that what actually happens in this condition, correct fluid and electrolyte derangements. So acute patients are not having this kind of conditions. It is in particularly chronic patients. Chronic patients, they are having the bladder full of water. Ultimately what is happening, there is a loss that is taking place inside the body. They are in a dehydrated state, they are in a state where the sodium potassium balance gets deranged. So that actually also needs to be corrected once we are draining out the urine. So first I'll discuss about the management of acute urinary retention. So it is an emergency situation, as I have already said, and first of all to do a catheterization. I have already discussed about urethral catheterization. This is the first line thing that we are going to do. If we are not able to pass it, then it is the suprapubic catheterization. The most important thing that comes across is it should be done in an absolutely aseptic condition, because we are going to enter infection inside the bladder, and that is itself a very dreadful situation. So saving one thing and entering the other is no value. I have already discussed that these patients may have basically pain, so we are going to give NSAIDs or paracetamol for the pain relief. Rehydration is particularly required for patients who are of chronic retention because they are already remaining dehydrated. Antibiotics for any conditions, and observe complications. Now what sort of complications do you expect? If a patient had urethral injury, that means there is bleeding. So ultimately you have to control that as well together. Blood transfusion has always to be thought about. You have to always think about the vitals of the patient. If the vitals is not good, you have to support that with IV fluids and etc. So we did the emergency management. Now what we basically want to know is what did actually cause this whole situation. So we need to find the underlying causes. Already discussed in the class what is USG showing us, what is an X-ray showing us, what is a CT scan showing us, and if we are suspecting any of the pathologies including the stricture, the bladder stones, the cancers of any of the areas, meatal stenosis, anything, it can be diagnosed with the help of similar situations. Markers that are always there includes PSA. We have done a DRE already when the patient came to us after the catheterization, and we have already checked whether there is a chance of prostatic cancer. So all these things have been done. One very important thing that is usually missed in all these above things is the neurological examination. So if we do all the things, we just forget the neurological examination, because we have to always keep in mind neurological conditions which have actually caused this particular situation. So always remember, the teachers will actually check you while doing the whole examinations, and normally people do forget to do any neurological examinations. Okay? Now only in acute situations we have put in a catheter. Patient goes home. Patient says, for how long will I put this catheter inside? So we basically start with certain medications. If this is an elderly age group patient or whatever age group, we will start with an alpha blocker. We will start with simple tamsulosin or a silodosin depending upon the situation, and we will just ask them to wait for about 3 to 4 days. Why? Because this is the amount of time that is required for the medications to act on. And thereafter we ask the patient to come back to us, because that will be basically the first trial that we are going to give without catheter. So this trial without catheter is something which is normally given after 2 to 3 days or maybe 3 to 4 days. But what actually has to be seen in these 2 to 3 days or 4 days is what is the amount of urine that the patient is passing. Normally these patients are coming in diuretic state post catheterization, because their kidney got decompressed at that point. Now because of this particular release of pressure on the kidneys, that starts a diuretic phase. AKI phase, whenever it is healing, it is the diuretic phase which is the last phase. You are reading that in medicine, right? Suppose patient comes to us, we removed the catheter, patient again went back home, came back again in a similar situation. This is called as a TWOC failure. And if there is a TWOC failure, we need to make them understand that this is a situation which requires prolonged catheterization, prolonged medications. One more trial can be given, but if that is also unsuccessful, we need to require to do some intervention, which may be basically depending upon the underlying cause, whether it is prostate leading to the prostatic surgery, whether it is basically a calculus, we remove that, so anything like that. And how do we follow up these patients? We have done we found prostate, we did TURP, we found stricture, we did dilatation, all these things have been done with. But what actually we do after these surgeries, we apply catheter. So we have to educate them that you have to keep this catheter very nicely. That is called as a catheter care, because this catheter, if it is not kept in a nice manner, it will cause infection. If they have a sudden pull of this particular catheter, it will cause complete urethral injury, avulsion of the urethra, and thereafter what also needs to be done is any forms of bladder irritants. Can anybody say what are the different bladder irritants? A simple thing, that is a tea and a coffee, is a bladder irritant. So we ask them to avoid tea and coffee. It is basically a bladder irritant. Monitor symptoms and seek for recurrence. So many times what actually happens, we require prolonged medications and they say that Dr. Babu hoye geche onek ar oshud khabo na. But if they stop this medication, they will again land up in the same situation. So three things: catheter care, medical adherence, and proper monitoring of all the symptoms needs to be done for basic timely seeking advice to us. So now comes to the chronic retention. So what is the basic difference between a chronic retention and an acute retention? Acute retention was a situation which was painful. We drained it and it actually went off. But chronic retention, what actually happens is, this is acute retention actually. In acute retention, the bladder might be this. It might be filled with 700 to 1000 ml of urine. But in chronic retention, the bladder is like this, might be going up to 2000 ml of urine. It is completely stretched up. It has taken its highest capacity. Now, if we are draining this particular bladder, and sudden drainage, what will actually it cause? It will cause a sudden decompression of the bladder. And that means the bladder walls will basically collapse and ultimately they will collide. So because of this collision, what actually happens? It leads to hematuria. It is a very, very common scenario. A patient coming to us, they say that actually you have put in a catheter. They are not much bothered because they were not painful that time also. They are not painful this time also. But you have created a new situation. You have started, the blood has started to come in the urine. So it is a very common scenario. This is called as decompression hematuria. And this decompression hematuria is a self-limiting condition normally, but sometimes may require irrigation, sometimes may require bladder wash to get treated. How to stop this decompression hematuria? So the basic way by which we stop this decompression hematuria is, we have put in the catheter, but we will not do draining which is immediately done. That means we are draining 1000 ml of urine in one go. We will not do that. We will drain around say 300 ml of urine in first step, wait for some time, clamp the catheter, again drain 300 ml of urine. So this is something in a gradual way, something which is called as slow decompression. So slow decompression will not cause a sudden collision of the walls of bladder, and this sudden collision will not be there. They will not cause decompression hematuria. So the first and the most important thing that comes across is decompression that is gradual. So that is the most important step in chronic retention. Thereafter, we always need to, even after this thing, sometimes patient develops hematuria. So if hematuria is there, they may develop hypertension. So all these things has to be taken care of either by bladder wash or by irrigations or by anything else. These patients are those patients who are normally having their kidney damaged. Why? Because of the blood pressure changes. So once there is a decompression that is taking place, there is a release of pressure in the kidneys as well, and because of which the patient from the CKD, from the AKI state, it actually lands up into a normal stage. Again, I said it's a diuretic stage. So patient will start to pass urine, almost around 200 ml of urine per hour. What is the normal average? It is about 50 ml of urine per hour. But these patients start to pass urine 200 ml per hour. You will see many of the patients in the wards, chronic retention, they are passing 4,000, 5,000 urine. That is basically there. Second important thing is monitor the vitals and the urine output that we have already done. And these are the patients who are having increased chance of renal dysfunction, increased chance of infection because the urine was stored, it was a nidus of infection. So you have to treat them also accordingly with nephrologist consultation with antibiotics as well. Medical management plays a very important role in chronic retentions particularly because the most common cause that comes across is basically the bladder outlet obstruction. And bladder outlet obstruction, what we need to immediately start is with alpha blockers, silodosin, tamsulosin. Sometimes these patients are on long-term mirabegron, opioids. We need to stop these particular inciting drugs. And we sometimes need a basic opposite drug to this, which is a parasympathomimetic drug, something which is called as bithanocol. Bithanocol is basically going to help them out, okay? Apart from that, 5-alpha reductase is again a prostatic drug which we need to give. So 5-alpha reductase, what are the different types? It is finasteride and dutasteride. These are two different types of 5-alpha reductase. And thereafter, a regular monitoring needs to be done. Now we know that we have drained the urine. We know that normally the chronic retentions are taking place because of bladder outlet obstruction. It can be prostatic issues. It was not salvageable, so ultimately a TURP is required. If it is basically a stricture, if it is, I am just going on a repetition now. Stricture, dilatation, stone, removal, infections, you treat it, cancer, you treat it, again prostate, you do a surgery. So this is all coming across. One very important thing that comes across is, that is called as, again, neurological issues. Now in certain neurological issues, what actually happens, that although the bladder was in retention, but because it has lost its tonicity, it is because of which the bladder is not able to pump. And if the bladder is not able to pump, even without any of the process, any of the surgeries, this will not get healed up. There is no such surgery which is going to get the bladder into its normal shape. Although there are certain flaps which are now being getting discovered in the Western countries, it's still within the stage of experimentation. So sacral neuromodulation is one very important thing that has come across. What we are doing in this sacral neuromodulation, we are causing certain electric stimulus directly to the S2, S3, S4 nerve roots of the spinal cord. And what happens? Our car gets stopped. We give basically a stimulus to the car and the car starts. In the similar manner, spinal cord, it is basically nerves. Wohi taar hai. Ultimately what we do, we basically give an electric stimulus, sacral neuromodulation, it starts to work. Not a 100% proofable procedure, but it has come into the picture. I have already discussed about these three things. The Foley's catheterization, suprapubic condition, yeah. This is one thing that needs to be discussed. Something which is called as CISC, clean intermittent self-catheterization. So as I discussed, that suppose a patient is having neurological issues, we have tried with sacral neuromodulation, we have tried with every other drug, but there is nothing which we can do. So we have to take out the urine for somehow, and the patient says, I don't want to be on catheter. In that situation, what we are going to do? We are going to train the patient to do a self-catheterization, which he will do at timely basis daily, say around 4 to 5 hours interval. As we basically pass urine at regular intervals, in the similar manner, we will do a catheterization at regular interval to take out the stored urine. This is called as clean intermittent self-catheterization, which if done, it is particularly done for neurogenic patients, and if done, it actually reduces infection of the bladder because we are not allowing the storage of urine. So this is, what is this? What is this thing? Likha hua hai yaar. It's a catheter. So it is basically a perurethral catheter. This is the penis and this is the bladder. A catheter actually is a two-way or a three-way catheter. This is a two-way which has been shown. There is a particular channel to inflate the balloon. You can see this is the balloon that is inflated. So normally catheters have balloons and these balloons help them to retain inside. We have put in a pipe, it can come out anytime. But if we inflate the balloon, it will not come out. It's a retention procedure. Suppose a patient is not able to pass through the normal passage, what we will do? Directly through the abdomen into the bladder, called as suprapubic cystostomy. So this is basically directly into the bladder and this was through the normal passage. So this is a perurethral catheterization, this is a suprapubic catheterization. So yes, I have already discussed that renal function needs to be checked, the amount of residual volume needs to be checked, infection needs to be checked, patient has to be educated about the catheter care, about the adherence to the medications, and if they are developing any kinds of symptoms back again or any complications in the form of infections, stones, anything, they have to seek advice of a urologist on an immediate basis. So now I think you will able to say the complication itself. The complications are including the chances of hydronephrosis or hydroureter. Why? Because it's the back pressure that is taking place inside the kidneys. Diverticular formation. What is a diverticular formation? The bladder is basically there. This bladder is getting stretched up. At a particular point, it is getting weakened even more than the other areas. So ultimately, this area becomes a diverticula. So this is called as diverticulation. Small diverticulas are called saccules. Okay, so saccules and diverticular formation in the bladder, hydroureter, hydronephrosis, which is in the ureter or in the kidneys. stored urine becoming a source of infection, becoming a nidus of stone formation. These patients normally will actually be very sedentary and they will have a very reduced quality of life. They will be depressed, they will not be doing any much of work. I am saying mostly about the chronic patients, not acute. Acute will basically jump up and come to you.